It's been one of those days where I'm lucky to be here right now.
You can toot your own horn a little bit, man. You've been busy today.
You have too, and life happens. But the good news is we're sitting in our seats at 6 o'clock having the Travel Ball Show. You got John Bennett, your host, here with Russ McCubbins, the fearless co-host, talking travel sports tonight on the Travel Ball Show. And Russ, we've had a lot of cool guests so far, and the goal of the show is to help parents and players navigate that travel ball journey, right?
100%.
And who better to help us do that than parents that have gone through the process with their kids, right?
Exactly.
And both you and I have kids, but it's always great to have other parents come in here and talk about their story and help others as well. So we've got tonight a guest, Erik Davis, a longtime friend. We all three have something in common, Russ.
Let me think for a moment. We played baseball at Bellarmine.
We all three donned the Bellarmine baseball jersey. Now, I will say this. You and him played a lot more than I did. I warmed up a mean bullpen, don't get me wrong. However, we have that in common. And Erik and you both went to the same high school. So a lot of common interest here tonight. So Erik Davis, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I think that's the standard line.
I Googled it earlier today. When they welcome you to the program, what do you say?
What do you say? So Erik is a first-time caller, long-time listener, but he's got a couple daughters that I think the experiences he's gone through are going to help us and help other parents with their journeys. So Erik, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So again, like you said, I've got two daughters. One is a freshman softball player at Bellarmine. The other is a sophomore volleyball player at Oldham County High School. Former softball player herself, and the softball player at Bellarmine used to play volleyball. So
I didn't know that.
Yep, she did. She played through her freshman year of high school and kind of broke it down that she decided not to play her sophomore year in high school because she didn't want high school tournaments on the weekends to impede her softball aspirations. When you're 5'3", your future's probably not in volleyball. So she didn't want to miss important travel softball tournaments because she had a high school volleyball tournament. So she, at that point, after her freshman year, she opted out of volleyball and wanted to focus strictly on softball. But she was two-sport athlete through her freshman year of high school.
And the paths that they've gone down aren't surprising given the fact that you played baseball in college and your wife was a volleyball player in college, if I'm not mistaken.
She was. She played at Georgia.
So shocking that you end up with a softball player and a volleyball player. So
tough to believe.
That's pretty cool. But I'm sure your all's experiences have helped them to understand the expectations that are required at the next level.
Yes, but things have changed so much in the last 20, 25 years.
Like what?
Oh, where do I begin? With the recruitment process, there was no Twitter, there was no social media, there was no email. My first email address ever was given to me when I was a freshman in college. So the only way, going back, and I was a 1995 high school grad, the only way for college coaches to recruit you was to physically watch you play, and they had to know who you played for, where you were playing, and contact, your coaches. So the game today couldn't be more different than it was, again, maybe almost 30 years ago now, I guess, to date myself.
The game within the game.
It definitely.
The game hasn't really changed.
Correct.
But, the game within the game
Absolutely has.
That recruitment process, sending letters or, we've got it easy now with phones and video and sending highlight links, right? Hey, here's everything chopped up in 30 seconds. This is my whole season. Here you go. How that occurred back in the day, it was a lot more work on the coach's part, right? On the colleges to get out and see you. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about tonight, both you and Russ, so you coached high school softball for quite some time, had a lot of success in the state of Kentucky, and as well as coaching travel ball. But you got to the point to where that the travel ball coaching, did that take a back seat a little bit and you let others do that, or did you continue to coach through Madison's high school career as well on the travel ball side?
So the way that my coaching career went was I was called to help coach the high school. And at that point, Madison was finishing her 11U season. And at that point, I told her, I am not going to coach you for your entire career.
Famous last words.
Yes. And I stuck to it because I think the best development for players is to get away from coach mom or coach dad and take criticism, take instruction from someone else. So I told her, I said, hey, I've been asked to coach at the high school. Are you in? And she said, I would love for you to coach at the high school. I said, then I'm backing out on the travel ball side. I said, I'm not going to be that dad, that coach, that parent that never lets go. You need to have instruction from others. So I said, what would you prefer me to do? And she said, I'd love for you to coach at the high school. So at that point, we kind of turned her loose and, found the right fit for, the continuation of her travel ball career in the summers. So in hindsight, it ended up being a fantastic decision. And, for me personally, I love being able to watch her play in the summers from the sidelines.
One of the more fun times I've ever had is watching my kids play soccer because I don't know much about it. And that's a good thing because you just sit back and watch and let those that do know what they're talking about.
But there had to be some sort of nervous early moments when you did that because you try to find her the best fit, right? But you still aren't there every single day, seeing the day in, day out of the instruction in that travel ball. And I think one thing we can both admit as high school coaches is that a lot of times our travel ball programs, they may have really, really nice ball players, but are we sure they're really getting the instruction that they could be getting otherwise, right? So there's had to be some nervous moments there.
Clearly. And, she played at a fairly high level, at a very high level. And we kind of tried to narrow down the programs that she was going to go on to based on the coaching that she was going to be able to receive. So, it was a short list, quite frankly. And, she ended up with a good fit and then, stayed with that program for a while and then, ended up having another program or two before she finished her career. But
it really seems real quick. Sorry to interrupt you, Eric.
Sure.
But I will.
It's your show, John.
It's good to be the boss. But it seems like in the softball travel world, those elite teams are fewer than you take the baseball side of the house, for example. It seems like they're fewer and further away from this particular region. Is that a fair statement?
It's a very fair statement. And I think that the main reason that is in the Louisville market is because this has become, it's been a volleyball hotbed for so long. So, there are a couple of teams in the Louisville market that I would classify as elite programs on a regional and national level. Other than that, you're traveling to Cincinnati, Columbus, Ohio, Indianapolis, Nashville, Atlanta, Birmingham. You've got to get out of town to get on one of those premier teams. Again, the Louisville market is fortunate that we've got a couple of them. But at the same time, if you look at the kids in Louisville, a lot of the kids are playing volleyball, and a lot of the fantastic softball talent in Louisville is they're playing for the Stingrays out of Ohio, the Outlaws in Ohio, the Indiana Magic Golds, the Tennessee Mojos. You don't have a lot of homegrown kids that are staying back to play for the Indiana Fusion, for the Louisville Lady Sluggers. A lot of them are getting on the road to get recognized.
And I'm glad you brought that up. On any particular weekend, you're bouncing around, whether it's Colorado or Georgia or wherever that might be. Is it more or less players getting together on the weekend and showing up at destination A, B, or C and doing it, and then going back to their homes and, hey, I'll see you next tournament? Is that what it ends up being at the end of the journey?
The short answer is yes.
Yeah.
The long answer is, me as a travel ball coach in yesteryear, I had kids that drove 2.5 hours away to play for our organization or for my team. So me as a travel ball coach, my kind of rule was, when we're together as a team, whether it's on a Saturday or a Sunday, it's going to be a defensive related practice. It's going to be team functions. A lot of times I never had time to do offensive practice and BP, because if you want to grow as a hitter, you really need to kind of do that on your own. I can't take 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes out of a practice to work with Susie on staying inside the ball. I need to work on defenses and bunt coverages and first and thirds. You need to hit on your own, but when we're together as a team, it's a defensive practice.
And Russ, you're a hitting coach.
Well, this is what I was going to say. As soon as I heard him say that, John, was this is the difference between coaching a team and instructing a player, right? So when we go to hitting instruction or pitching instruction, we're getting, not in all cases, one-on-one. There might be one or two or the other three kids there, but the group is very small. A lot of times it is individual instruction. So, with that being the setup in a lesson, it depends on what your role is, what hat you're wearing as a coach that day. If you're wearing, hey, I'm an instructor hat, then yeah, you can spend 45 minutes or an hour with this one player, right? But if you're coaching a team and trying to prep them for game play, you don't really have time to break down each of them's individual hitting technique, right?
And you nailed that absolutely on the head. So one of the years that I was coaching, I had 3 kids from the Evansville market, 1 from the Bowling Green market. I wasn't an instructor. I wasn't giving lessons. I was a coach. When we would do a midweek practice, it would be open to all. But of course, I'm not going to expect a kid to drive 2.5 hours one way to come to, BP. Again, do that on your own. But when we did have our midweek practices, it was with my local kids. And yes, I became an instructor at that point. But again, I've never been paid $1 for a lesson. Again, I'm a coach.
It's all has to do with the hat you're wearing that day.
Correct.
And what your role is. Like, for instance, myself, I've been a head varsity baseball coach, and I liked it. It was enjoyable, but I didn't like it nearly as much as when I'm an assistant coach, when I actually get to instruct, right? So over at Ballard now, I'm, air quotes, I'm the hitting instructor, but I do defense as well. It's not just hitting only. And all the coaches really jump in on our hitting sessions. But yeah, to me, it's a lot more fun to be an assistant coach. I don't have all that responsibility, and I can actually dive in and instruct.
Well, parents, if you're listening out there, I think the message that resonates with me is the fact that to play at the higher levels, the players need to take it upon themselves to do the hitting lessons, and not only do the hitting lessons, but take what they've learned during that lesson and implement it throughout the week, or work on whatever that instructor is deemed necessary. So when they come back the following week, there's improvement. The instructors know if you're not working, right? They know if you haven't picked up a bat since the last lesson.
Can you say that again?
Yeah.
Can you say that again for those that might not have caught that?
Yeah, they're pretty smart folks. So the good news is there's opportunity to hit into screens. If nothing else, pick up the bat, hit into a screen, soft toss off a tee, get some work in. But whether it's baseball, softball, volleyball, what have you, um, lessons are usually once a week, and they expect you to go home and work on the things that you've talked about. And parents, if you have any questions or thoughts or comments about softball tonight, to ask Erik and Russ, they're the softball gurus this evening. Text us in on the PPL, the Pitching Performance Lab text line, 502-437-9680. 502-437-9680 on the PPL text line. We'll make sure to get those questions in front of them. Erik, one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight, and we touched on it a little bit, is that showcase schedule and where do I need to play as a young softball player looking to play at the next level. Where do I need to get get looks, to have college coaches see me play if I want to play at the next level? And we're going to get into that at the next break when we come back. But we'll be coming right back on the Travel Ball Show with John and Russ here momentarily after this commercial break.
I was already like this. Look, you know what this means?
Welcome back to the Travel Ball Show with John and Russ. If you have any questions tonight, we're talking softball. Make sure to text into the PPL text line 502-437-9680. Russ, I'm sounding loud and clear on this Purnell sponsor microphone, aren't I?
You definitely are. And before you go too far, I want to make sure that, hey, like I do every week, when you go to break, you say, when we come back, we're going to talk about this. But you hardly ever do, so I'm holding you to it.
Squirrel. So between our breaks, we have our conversations, and sometimes it spurs other thoughts. And I think that's what happens, Russ. We get sidetracked. Squirrel.
Yeah.
But we are going to follow up on that and talk about what we talked about before the break, which was what, Russ?
We are going to get with Coach Erik Davis about what showcase tournaments are.
It's not all we were talking about. Go ahead.
But last week we talked with Coach Ann Cordes with Kiva Volleyball, and we talked about going to showcases and events to get exposure. And what we were talking about before the break with Erik was, there's tournaments across the country. As a softball player, trying to get exposure at the coaches or with the coaches at the next level to play college softball, what does that path look like, and where do they need to be focused on to give themselves the best opportunity to be seen and play at that next level?
So number one, again, it's what organization are you playing with? There are a handful of organizations within, an hour or two from Louisville that they have the premier name and they get into the premier tournaments. They get the good fields with the majority of the schools to come watch. So showcase tournament, if you play for, the Louisville Ladybugs, you're probably not going to be on a premier field at a quote unquote showcase. It's a sad truth. You need to be on a big team with an organizational name that gets you in front of those colleges. Now, with that being said, if you are in the right area, if you go to the right showcases, you're going to be seen. And they might not be coming to watch you or somebody on your team. You may stand out in a game where a coach is coming to watch somebody on the opposing team. 2 years ago, I guess, my oldest daughter's team, they were playing in a tournament down in Atlanta, and all of a sudden Patrick Murphy from University of Alabama is watching our game. He wasn't there to watch anybody on our team, but yet our pitcher, you may know, your shortstop, you may know, Russ, because you coached both of them at Ballard.
Of course.
They both kind of went nuts that game. Did they get on Patrick Murphy's radar? Maybe. But they went out, they played their game, they played the game that they love at a high level at the right time. So, again, you don't need to go to Denver, Colorado, to Huntington Beach, California. Yes, those are amazing trips. They're memories for a lifetime. But if you don't have a daughter that is that next level good, that could be playing on the Olympic team, could be playing in, the pro softball league, to me, I don't think it's a necessity. Again, it's an adventure. It's memories for a lifetime. But again, you can know the talent level of your child.
And, that's applicable to any of the sports we talk about often, right? Because there's always a World Series somewhere, some weekend. There's always a national championship somewhere, some weekend, whether it's softball, baseball, volleyball, cheer, whatever. There's always that tournament somewhere, some weekend. And, between the three of us, we've gone to a lot of places and been fortunate to see our kids play in some cool places and have memories, right? And that does mean a lot, but there's still opportunity outside of Denver, Colorado, right?
Sure.
If you're from Louisville, Kentucky, and you're trying to to play at the next level, I go back to the adage: if you're good enough, they're going to find you. And I think that is true. Do you give yourself a better opportunity to get seen? Maybe.
Maybe.
But to your point, right? Things like that happen. Someone comes to see somebody else and you have a great game. Good for you. That's what it's about.
And if I can jump in here real quick, again, if you're in the Louisville market, if you are next level good, yeah, you need to get west of the Mississippi. If not, there's fantastic tournaments and showcases in Nashville, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Atlanta, Birmingham. So again, a lot of the kids in this area, they're not going to get terribly far away. So,
I was communicating with Tim Foster, the director for Indiana.
Love Tim Foster.
Good people.
Sure.
And want to send a thought out to Tim with his mother-in-law. She's not doing so hot, but we wish her the best. But, Tim does a great job putting on tournaments in Indiana. Good talent, well-run tournaments. And I think that's something that parents and coaches sometimes take for granted, right? These tournament directors.
Well, speaking of Tim, I think Tim would always be the type of guy too that let's just say, because you got to admit, most people that coach travel ball are parents, at least at the say 12U and under ages. So I think let's just say you think your team is good, but you don't think you're an A. You think you're a C, right? Well, Tim knows the talent. And
Sure.
other people like Tim that run these tournaments, they know the talent. They'll tell you their honest opinion. And you probably need to be in this tournament. You
Right.
probably need to, maybe you're better than you think you are. You need to jump up to this level. As a parent and a coach, and in your case, what advice would you give to parents? What questions should they ask of their coach or of their organization with regards to, hey, should we really be going to California? Is this team at that level? Or should we stay in Nashville or Chattanooga? What questions or advice would you give to parents that are unsure?
There's no such thing as a bad question. And you guys kind of touched on this last week with Coach Cordis. Communication lines have to be open. And I think that it starts with the coach, quite frankly, because as a coach, you're hosting tryouts. You need to let the parents know, hey, this is the intended schedule. I plan on playing. If you are, up to the challenge, I want your daughter if she can make the cut. But again, if you as a parent put your kid on a team, she tries out for, again, the Louisville Ladybugs, and they have a big national schedule.
I want to start the Louisville Ladybugs, by the way.
I do too. I mean, sign me
a real
up.
team?
Sign me up.
Squirrel. All right, back. Focus, Eric. What do you
But
got?
again, if you're going to come play for a team as the coach of that team, I have to tell you, hey, my plans are to take this team to Colorado and to California, and we're going to go to Atlanta twice and St. Louis once. You've got to know what you're signing up for as a parent. So again, is that all necessary? No, it's not. But you need to know what you're getting into, what your daughter is getting into. Because if your daughter is not at the University of Oklahoma, University of Texas, a UCLA, personally, my opinion, why do I need to go to Huntington Beach, California for a tournament when her dream school is Murray State or Tennessee Tech or Western Kentucky? And I'm just throwing names out that are, within 3 hours of Louisville. So that's, everybody's got an opinion, and some are more valuable
that's
than others.
exactly where I was, why I asked the question, and you took it in the direction I was looking for. Our goal, we definitely want to promote travel ball by all means.
Totally.
We also need to admit that it's not a perfect science. It's not a perfect system. If you had a magic wand that you could wave, name me one or two things that you would like to see made better in the travel ball world.
Softball or volleyball, since you got one in each.
You pick. You pick.
Turn this into a game show.
This is a terrible question that I was hoping was not going to be asked of me tonight.
We ask the tough questions here.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
I wasn't expecting. I thought this was going to be a friendly interview tonight. It just got dirty
We're-
right
Come
now.
on.
Inquiring minds want to
don't
know.
ask- we wouldn't ask if you weren't capable of coming up with a
So I mean, what can be made better? Again, that's a very difficult question.
How about a bad experience that you had, whether as a parent or as a coach, that after it happened, you thought to yourself, or maybe you said out loud, "Man, if I got a chance to do that over again, I would have done that better."
That's an easy question. Selecting a kid or two on a team that I've coached. That was a soft toss right there. Thank you.
I had
Thank
to
you,
bring
Russ.
you
I
out of the
appreciate
depths
that.
of
Yeah,
the
you did.
darkness.
You kind of buried me there for a second. You're bringing me back. Yeah, as a coach, that's easy. The selections that I made that I thought were best for that player, that were best for our team, and all of a sudden, a parent has an unrealistic expectation of, their child's playing time or their ability. That's the toughest part. Being a coach is you have to take the dad hat off. And, I've coached plenty of teams where my kid was not the best on the team. But I've also, brought plenty of players on the teams that, quite frankly, didn't deserve it. But sometimes you need a warm body, and I needed somebody to fill out a roster, and they take a personal friendship and take advantage of it.
We talked about it last week. The travel ball selection process is not perfect, and it's hard. It's hard emotionally on parents, players, coaches. It's just not fun. But more times than not, where they end up after the fact is usually a good story. Hopefully they're continuing to play, period, right? But we see often to where, hey, that's the best thing ever happened, right? We went over here and we're having fun playing a game we love. And that's the main thing, right? Let's have perspective here. And playing a sport at any level, any sport, you're playing a game. So yeah, it stinks for a little bit, but you get over it. Kids are resilient, parents are resilient, and it happens.
I don't think any coach wishes that he or she is the first coach that cuts a particular child, right? It's the worst day in the world to cut. As we were sitting here thinking about various levels, we have touched on several times. Hey, the JUCO route is not a bad thing, right? I would like to ask Derek a similar question that we asked a guest a couple weeks ago named Jay Sorg. We talk about selecting a school or helping your child select a program. You have to be honest with them, let them know what level you think they can play at, right? As a parent, as a coach, but also helping them pick the right school. And interestingly enough, your daughter selected Bellarmine as well as Jay's son. So talk a little bit about that, if you would, like why Bellarmine was her selection.
So, she selected Bellarmine. She's the kid that doesn't want to get too far away from home. She didn't want to get too far away, and she wanted the small campus lifestyle. She wants to be held accountable for her work in the classroom. So if you're at a lecture hall with 150 students in there, they don't know your name. That professor doesn't know who you are. So she didn't want that. She wanted to be able to walk in and be known by name, by professors, by classmates. So again, I think that's very beneficial. You can tell your professor, who's got 25 students, hey, professor, I've got an away conference set this weekend. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm going to miss class on Friday. Again, you tell a professor in a 150 kid lecture hall, they don't care. And she wanted that small school, close to home feel. And, fortunately, that Bellarmine was her number one. It's where she wanted to go.
And you had a situation where there was a new coach as well, correct?
Yeah, and one of the previous coach, Renee Hicks, fantastic, love her to death. One of the things that she said at a softball camp years ago was, go to a school for the school. Don't go there for the coach, because coaches change. And that always stuck with me. And then sure enough, Madison signs her, in LI, and coaching change. The world got shook. Then all of a sudden they bring in a new coach, and again, it's been a fantastic transition. She has come in, Coach D has come in, and has honored everything that was promised and is doing her own evaluations. She doesn't seem to be you're a senior, you're going to play. Everybody's going to have their option. I saw that in the fall season they played. She was very, very fair in playing time and moving girls around. So I think she's going to be a very good fit for Bellarmine University softball program.
And that's great to hear. And I'm sure every coach is different, but having a new coach come in, there's that period of uncertainty, and that's not always.
But usually it's followed by an energy. Right?
Yeah.
It's uncertain for a while.
Sure.
Then when you get to know them, and they start to put their fingerprint on the program, then there's that excited energy level, and I'm excited for Madison to get the experience that.
Before she got to that point, though, Eric, she played 2 sports until her freshman year, you said, and you had your other one who chose volleyball versus softball. Both of them multi-sport athletes, and they get to that point of choosing one over the other, right? And that's got to be a tough conversation to have, but it's one that you've had twice.
And honestly, John, they were so easy to have, because they both came to, Jenny and I, my wife, and it was their decisions. Madison came and said, I want to focus on softball. That is my future. Shelby's story was a little bit different. I'd always been coaching Madison. She was the oldest. And, I'll never forget, Shelby looked at me and said, Dad, you ever going to be a head coach of one of my teams? And it was heartbreaking. And I said, yes. And this is the time, because that was when Madison was about to start high school. I had already been asked to coach at Oldham County. So then I ended up starting a new team with, again, the aforementioned Louisville Lady Sluggers, with the approval of the ownership group, and had a fantastic team. Your daughter was part of it. And that as that year came down to an end, I was in the process of combining with another organization, and we were going to build a super team.
The formidable super
we
elite.
were going to be outstanding. We were going to combine with a team out of Elizabethtown, and we had a lot of commits, and it was going to be wonderful. But Shelby looked at me. This was 3 weeks before tryouts. She said, Dad, I want to play at Kiva. And I said, you can't play travel softball and club volleyball. And she says, I know, I want to play for Kiva. And I said, you mean club volleyball? She said, no, I want to play for Kiva. They're the best. And that was her mindset. And that was when she changed her career path and said, I want to go be the best volleyball player I can possibly be. That's my future. Let's go.
That's a cool story, and they had a vision, and it's taking place right now. So the younger ones, so I know we've got parents out there today that, how do I get my daughter going? When should they start playing softball, right? What are some thoughts on your side? I don't think we see the rec league options as much as we used to. What are some good things that parents can begin doing, and when should they begin doing that, at what ages, in your opinion?
in my opinion, the first and foremost thing is make sure they're having fun and they love the sport they're playing. It's a game, and games are fun to play. If you're not having fun playing the game, go find another game. So at that point, a lot of that, in my opinion, is driven on, are they enjoying it? Do they love playing the sport? If they do, then I hate to say this, but no time is too early.
Right.
You get into kid pitch at the 9 and 10U level in softball. Volleyball is around the same time, really. So again, make sure they're having fun. Don't try to push them. Mom and dad, your days are over. It is time for your kids to live their lives, play their sports. Nobody wants to see me put on a pair of polyester pants and play a game of baseball again.
I'd agree with that. I thought you were going to say play some softball. I really want to see that, but
I don't want to do that. A good friend of mine years ago, I got bruised up in a couple of softball games, sliding, taking an extra base, and he looked at me and says, "ED, if you're sliding, you went one base too far." And that's absolutely right.
Yeah, we want flaps down going to the second.
Tell me this though, Eric. If you have full intention of not coaching your child, and then you look up and realize, oh man, I'm probably a better option between the coaches that they have, and me, who's just sitting on the sideline. Tell me, I'm sure that's likely happened to you too, or hell, it might be the reason why you got into coaching travel. Well, I'm not sure.
Well, here's what we're going to do right now, Russ. We're going to go to a break, but when we come back, we're going to understand why
Sure we will.
Eric stopped coaching at the high school level. I think there's a story with that, but you're listening to John and Russ on the Travel Ball Show. We'll be right back. Yeah, I have to keep my time.
Yeah, I'm gonna pee real quick.
Yeah.
I was looking at my watch going, I don't know that I've got time to answer this question. And then you're like, nah, we got to.
Yeah, no, yeah. We'll finish up strong.
because PPL gets a lot of plugs.
Welcome back to the Travel Ball Show with John and Russ. Hey, Russ, we got a text come in on the PPL text line. If you have any questions, please send us a note on 502-437-9680. 502-437-9680. Question along the lines of opportunity at the NAIA D2, D3 levels. Where do you see the most opportunity? And I'm going to address that real quick because I thought the guest we had a few weeks ago with PBR shed a lot of light on that around wherever you're getting calls from,
Sure.
and interest from is probably where you'll end up, right?
Right.
If you're getting D1 looks and you're getting D1 calls, that's probably where you'll go, getting D2, D3, and vice versa. So that's a really great question. A lot of parents don't know what they don't know. Players as well. How good am I? How not good am I, right? And at the end of the day, you want your kid to be in a situation where they can have success if they're continuing to work, right? And the reality is not everybody is Power 5, and that's okay. At the end of the day, continuing to play at the right fit, that's a win.
John, there's a lot more non-Power 5 college programs out there, obviously, with just sheer numbers.
Right. Yeah, so the answer to that question, thanks for the text. The answer to your question is there's a lot of opportunity outside of D1 if that's of interest and the skill sets align. So before the break,
Can I jump in on that real quick?
yes.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize. Love to hear that.
So my comment on that is don't chase D1. Don't chase Power 5. You play the sport, whichever sport it may be, basketball, volleyball, football, baseball, softball. You play the sport because you love the sport. So if you want to go to college, you want to go to college to play a sport. So you might not be Power 5 good. That's okay. You might be D2 good. That's fantastic. If you have an opportunity to go play, don't chase the spotlight. Go chase the schools that you're capable of playing at.
There's some cool stats out there, but you see the statistics around this amount of high school players and this amount of college players and this amount of pro players. Obviously, it decreases as you climb the ladder, but it's a pretty cool opportunity to get that chance to play at the next level, at whatever level it is, right?
Absolutely.
So that's good stuff. So before we went to the break, we talked about coaching changes, and Erik, you were a high school coach for some time, had a lot of success out there. Can you help us understand why the transition? What happened? Why'd you stop coaching at the high school level?
So I was fortunate enough. I was asked to help coach Oldham County High School 7 years ago, I guess. And again, I touched on it earlier that at that time I was coaching Madison's travel ball team. So I told her, said, hey, it's time to turn you loose. I'm not going to coach you forever. You need other instruction. So it was going to be a great opportunity to coach at the high school level. I'd never coached 17 and 18-year-olds before. So we were both in agreement that high school was probably going to be more suited, for my style. And then, again, thank you to Steve Linhart for bringing me on. And I was fortunate to coach, 5 years at Oldham County. In those 5 years, we were able to, to make it to the state tournament twice, if I'm not mistaken. And it was awesome. Then Madison had a very good high school career. Couldn't be more proud of her. And, her junior year, again, I was the game changer guy. I stood in the dugout. Madison was playing center field her junior year. So me wanting to remove myself from, and I don't even like to use the term daddy ball. I didn't want to be that close to her. So Steve Linhart had me as the infield coach, which I was happy with. I've never played outfield a day in my life. So I was very at home being the infield coach. And, again, I didn't coach the bases. I'd coach periodically at first base. But again, I was the game changer guy. I was the stat guy. And, in doing so, I had a great time. But as the year went on, you would hear rumblings from players. They would come in and say, was that a hit? Was that an error? How'd you record that? It's like, this is not about your individual statistics. We're up 5-1 right now in the 6th inning, and all you care about is, did I record that as a hit or an error or a fielder's choice? And then I was starting to hear some rumblings from outside the fence, from parents, and Madison ended up, again, she had a fantastic junior year and won a few accolades. And quite frankly, I think that some of the parents in the stands felt that those accolades were awarded because I had a clipboard. I had zero influence over. I never hit a home run for her in high school. I never made a double play. I never did anything. And I think that was tough for some parents to swallow. Again, they see an undersized kid out there that happened to be a pretty darn good softball player. And, quite frankly, the reason that I didn't come back her senior year is because the parents ruined it for me. They took all the fun out of coaching. Would I like to get back into it again? I think so. But again, it would never be with a kid of mine on that team.
And I hate to hear that, but I understand exactly what you're saying. If we could just drop the kids off and keep the parents away sometimes, it's a better world.
Sure.
Less drama for sure, right?
And don't get me wrong, I've made some fantastic friendships with parents of kids that I've coached over the years. But
right.
They killed it for me.
I think sometimes they're so they've got the blinders on and they don't realize, like I said earlier, you might have been the very best option to be on that coaching staff. There's got to be a way that they can overlook the fact that, okay, you are a parent. That doesn't mean that you don't know what you're talking about,
sure.
Right? And so I think all three of us have sort of been in scenarios, and a lot of times it is easier just to step away and be the dad or be the mom and watch. One of my roles, I think, always as a coach is trying to get players to step up to leadership roles, but I'm also trying to get parents to realize this. Don't be that parent that blames the coaches for your kid's lot in life. If you are better than they are, then step up and be a coach.
But and again, that was the best thing that could have happened her senior year was, the accolades that she did receive as a junior. Because according to some parents, it had everything to do with me being a coach. She won even more of them as a senior with me being a dad on the sidelines. That's what made me the most proud. And again, I hated not being on the field with her because what I love most about coaching is the relationship with the parents with the players that I have coached. I still text with a lot of them to this day. I've got some in grad school. I've got some that have just graduated college. I've helped get, kids jobs.
Sure.
And that's good stuff. And we asked that question around, and I wasn't trying to dig for dirt or anything like that, but unfortunately drama occurs and it's just hard. You take good coaches and you run them out of the game, and the same goes with umpires, right? The parents today, we just have to check ourselves and understand what's really important and have perspective. That umpire behind the plate that's making $60 to put on the gear and get yelled at for 2-3 hours, it's not worth $60, is it? Right?
Not at all.
They do it because they love it. Coaches out there, heck, if you broke it down on high school coaches on a per hour,
way worse than minimum wage.
They're losing money at the end of the day, but they're out there because they're trying to help someone's daughter or son, talking all sports here, have a good experience and play a game, right? So parents, if we have one word of advice is to bite your tongue sometimes and and enjoy seeing your son or daughter out there playing a sport. And as long as they're having fun, that's what it's all about. And the time stops at some point, right?
That's right. Parents, if I can give you one piece of advice, it is cheer and be supportive of the team. Coaches coach, players play, parents cheer.
Perfect.
I like that.
Well
And
said.
you know, I was the game changer guy too. As far as broadcasting, I wasn't the stat guy. I wasn't that important. But parents, if you're looking for something to do to get your mind off the game, keep score. Get up in the press box. It's warm when it's cold, and it's cold when it's hot. So
Volunteer.
hey, I speak from experience. I can tell you right now, being in the press box has its advantages. So be that parent. Take Game Changer and broadcast the darn game and commentate. Give yourself something to do while the game's taking place. But we really appreciate Erik Davis, softball coach extraordinaire, parent extraordinaire for volleyball and softball players. We appreciate Eric taking time out of his day.
Thank you guys for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And this is the Travel Ball Show with John and Russ. We'll see you next week. We appreciate it. So
Enjoyable.
that was fun. Thanks. We'll see you next week.
Anything like what we thought?
Yeah.